mean, there's lots been going on behind the scenes. In World Rugby, we had the elections this last weekend. Interesting way they did that electronically. They were going to give 2 weeks to get the votes in. After 2 days, they declared Big Bill the winner, 28 votes to 23.
Did that surprise you?
The margin surprised me a bit. I thought it would be a bit tighter with Peugeot. I knew he had the whole of Sanzar, and I felt that they may have been able to influence one or two of the smaller countries. They didn't. The big votes, obviously, Japan's 2 went to Bill Beaumont.
Is that because France voted with? Is that because England voted for them for the World Cup?
Yeah, but Bill basically got them the World Cup, and then Bill's
that was quid pro quo.
Yeah, and then with Laporte coming in as unopposed vice president.
That's a dangerous thing for rugby, I think.
Very dangerous, eh? And to align with Bill for the next 4 years, and he'll be 72, so he'll be out. So Laporte is seen the way to become the chair is to be the vice chair and then become the chair. He got the African vote. The president there has been staying in Paris for the last 40 years. Same with the 2000.
Isn't there office down the road in Newlands?
Rugby Africa's offices are in Saru's offices, but the president lives in Paris. And then Fiji and Samoa, which were the 2 very influential votes that you would ordinarily think would go with the Sanzar allowance. But over time, they've been very disillusioned with New Zealand. They felt there hasn't been a financial investment into the game. There hasn't been an investment into the island rugby. Who will come to the fore with a checkbook? France. And so France has kind of invested in various forms of development there. One of them being taking half their players to play for France. And
so do you think that Bill Beaumont's a good choice?
I think he's a safe choice for them. It's what the Six Nations know. It entrenches. They were very, very afraid of Peugeot and
what he was going to...
And the noises. He was talking revolution. The game can never be the same again. Old Boys Club must be broken up. Goes with what Will Colley said.
The old farts.
Yeah, he mentioned that in his campaigning. Yeah. And as he said, he knew he was going to be up against it when he wrote to all Six Nations CEOs to just discuss rugby in general, the vision of the game, and not one of them, Wales, the only one who responded to basically say they're not interested in chatting. So he knew that it was going Beaumont's way in terms of the Northern Bloc as such and the traditional Six Nations. And already you see Bill coming out and saying Six Nations will not be touched in a global calendar. Those dates stay in place. It's all he's ever known for 150 years. So a relic from the past or a revolution from the future. And I would have loved it to have been Peugeot, but in a way you always knew it was going to be Bill Beaumont. I just didn't think it would be quite as decisive, 28 to 23.
Well, as a Welshman, I would love. It would be nothing worse than to see the Six Nations disbanded. I mean, it's...
Well, they would never disband in the Six Nations. It's like looking at when do they play the tournament. So Peugeot has been big on a global season, a World Championship season, where certain dates may have to be adjusted. So you've got your club structures that are strong, and then you go into an international window. And that's something that was rejected 6 months ago. That's back on the table now. But the big thing there also, Beaumont, with the island 2 teams, is he's going to propose that if you've played for the All Blacks or Australia or England or France and you are of Samoan or Fijian heritage, that if you have a 3-year or 5-year stand-down period, meaning if you haven't played for that team for the last 5 years, you become eligible to play for them again. So you've got the likes of a Charles Piutau who played for the All Blacks, but he's of Tongan descent and he hasn't played for the All Blacks for 5 years. He could become eligible. Amar Nonu could become eligible for a year just to play for Samoa. He hasn't played for the All Blacks for 5 years. The counter to that, as Peugeot said, one, he found it patronizing towards the island players, the youngsters. And are you giving a player who's chosen another country a kind of send-off to go play for 2 years with a country of his origin, birth, potentially? And in many cases, those players weren't born in those islands. They were born in New Zealand or born in Australia or born in England. So there was a lot of politicking going on there. But Laporte, I think, big behind Beaumont. And
why is Laporte not good for rugby, in your opinion?
He's a very, very powerful administrator, but a very political administrator. So if you're looking at rugby as a business, a greater spread, breaking up the Six Nations, breaking up a southern hemisphere-based game or a northern hemisphere-based game, and you want a global collective. I thought Peugeot was the best suited because even though he's from Argentina, he spoke very much from a global perspective. He looked at the smaller nations and said, if rugby's ever going to position itself as a global game and not an elitist game, things have to change.
Yeah.
And those old boy clubs just don't change, not up north. You see Brent Impey of New Zealand has come out very strongly, the chairman of New Zealand, to say, we voted for Peugeot. We accept the decision. It's democratic. The Bill Beaumont is there. But certain things have to change or the game's going to falter and it's going to stall.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of heat put on him. But Laporte is going to be the driving force. He's got that hunger. He controls everything in France. When he controlled rugby, sports ministry, he kind of put things in place. He will be the next chair of World Rugby. And you just saw how he manipulated everything when it came to the South African 2023 World Cup. When the independents said South Africa was best placed, they recommended them. He came out immediately and said, it's not over yet. We got 2 weeks. We're starting to campaign. South Africa back then wrote to World Rugby to say he's broken every kind of ethical protocol.
Good practices. Yeah.
They never kind of took him on. They allowed all that politicking to go on, and he garnered the votes. They got on a jet. They flew everywhere, and votes that were promised to South Africa then went to France. And Bill Beaumont smiled and said, "Well, France still a great choice. There wasn't much between the two countries. There was a hell of a lot between the two." So, I think it's a step back.
Do you think they could get away with the stuff that they do if they were, say, if the sport was as big as soccer?
Not at all, and you see, it's not, and the money's not there at the moment, and your nation base isn't there. You've effectively got 10 teams, even though rugby's paraded as this global game. You've got 10 teams that are fairly competitive, and there's a top 6 and definitely a bottom 4 out of those 10. I just hope that there is a form of shift, that the Southern Hemisphere Alliance is strong enough to try and engineer some form of change. But
well, does the margin of victory show a closer race than it has been in the past?
No, I think it shows Southern Hemisphere still aligned, Northern Hemisphere still aligned, with a dash of smaller Southern Hemisphere going to the north with your Fijis and your Samoas. What's disappointing for me is when you look at a couple of the newspaper reports from the weekend is, please don't lose Peugeot from the game. And he's not involved anywhere now. So he went from being the vice chair to running for chair to not being on the executive, not being on the mix at all. And you don't want to see someone like that now kind of either fall away from the game, go into business, or just align himself just with the Argentinian Rugby Union. It's brave of him to have taken the approach that he did. But geez, I always felt if they're not ready for it now, when are they ever going to be ready for that change? Yeah.
So in essence, he needed 3 more votes. So he needed 3 of Beaumont's votes.
He basically needed Fiji and Samoa
and Africa.
You would like to think Africa
would have gone
with South Africa, and Japan, if they wanted to be part of an expanded Sansa, if they wanted to be part of the Southern Hemisphere, and that's one of the reasons some Wolves are not going to be part of Sansa, is because the original thing with Japan was you come into Super Rugby through the Sun Wolves. You then kind of support South Africa's bid, as we'd expect you to support Australia's for the next World Cup. And at the last minute, test matches were being played in Singapore, between Italy and between Scotland, and France was doing something, and all of a sudden Japan's votes went there. And so
they were bought.
Yeah, they were bought. And I mean, again, everyone from the Southern Hemisphere is saying politicking must stop now. And more, the heat's been put on the lack of transparency with the vote. It's everyone knew at the end who voted for who, but it was like, be transparent in everything. Peugeot wanted global debates. He wanted to go on air with Bill Beaumont and just discuss things and try and just educate people about what he wanted to do with rugby. His biggest thing was, I'm no Robin Hood. I didn't want to take from the rich and give to the poor. I just want us to govern a different game and along business principles. And already just the comments that Bill makes at 68, very much a traditionalist. Played for the Lions, captained England.
Well, could you get more of a traditionalist than an English 68-year-old?
Yeah, and going on to 72, and it's just, I just feel they lost a great opportunity. But again, who were the voters? The voters were 60-year-old traditional, the relics that are involved in World Rugby.
So we wake up to no new world order. We wake up to the same old farts. The rugby being governed the same old way. It's very disappointing.
Yeah, you just think within the executive, I think if you look at Impey and the comments he's made, I mean, Mark Alexander's on the executive, so he's made some strong comments as well about things that have to change.
Yeah.
You just hope that through that they can drive a kind of change. The big thing is let's get that global season going. Let's get it going as soon as possible, where you would have the July internationals as we know them, the North coming to the South with weakened teams, end of a season. To take that out of the mix, play your Super Rugby competitions or your European competitions, club specific then, and then October becomes the month that they travel here, and we go November to the North, as we've always done. Keep those two windows packaged. We then still play our rugby championship at a certain stage, and the Six Nations stays at a certain stage. But each match counts for points on that World Championship log. So you have nothing as a meaningless test anymore.
Well, that would, I like that. Anyway, look, listen, enough about these.
Enough of the suits.
Enough of the suits.